This episode is a Montana deer hunt with me and one of my really good hunting buddies, Bart May.
Ooh. Looks like a hot mix there.
That's a lot of coffee there. I need some to keep up with you and your Energizer Bunny stuff.
Bart and I have known each other for the better part of 12 years, I would guess.
Come on, let's go, let's go, let's go. So you are.
Last fall, we went on an elk hunt together and Bart shot a great bull. Then this spring we went on a bear hunt together and I shot a bear. This year we've been on an elk hunt. He really doesn't have a real regimented style to his hunting. It's go with the flow, see what's working. And because of that, Bart is a very enjoyable guy to hunt with.
I don't even know where I'm going. I've only looked at this place one time in the daylight. Well, Randy invited me out to come mule deer hunting in eastern Montana, and I've never been mule deer hunting at all in eastern Montana. Make sure I have everything.
We came late in October, which is before the rut. And the reason we did is not because we thought it was the prime time to hunt, but it's the only time our schedules would allow the two of us to get together for a deer hunt like this. And being together and doing it with a guy like Bart, to me, is more important than being here in the peak of the rut.
For Randy and Bart, planning their trip before the rut was questionable. But as longtime hunting buddies, foregoing the prime hunting period for the chance to hunt together was worth the risk. And this is actually the second half of their hunting trip. Earlier in the week, Randy harvested a nice bull elk, overcoming both weather and unknown terrain. This mule deer hunt will be a whole new ball game in a completely different area. Randy and Bart head afield to strategize their hunt.
What's the plan, Bart May?
I don't know, looking on the map, there's some hay fields just over this hill, about 3/4 of a mile, and I'm wondering if they aren't just moving in and out of them.
Well, the good part is coming in from this direction, we got the wind in our favor.
If you want to come and do an on-your-own hunt for deer in Montana, there's a deadline that you need to know about. March 15th, every spring, Montana has an application process where 5,500 non-resident just deer tags are given away, and 17,500 non-resident deer-elk combination tags are given away. I'm not moving very fast today.
Hunting with a sloth.
Oh, gee, thanks. And those of you non-residents, apply by March 15th. You'll know sometime by mid to late April if you've drawn. And if you did this as a non-guided, on-your-own experience, you could do a Montana deer hunt for under $1,000 and have the time of your life.
Randy the Sloth.
We just got done elk hunting with Randy on another area of this unit. Now it's been fun. He's been in elk mode, and now we're trying to go to deer mode. And
Oh, I see.
yeah, there's one in the bottom.
Oh, he's got a big body on it.
I know.
In this time of year, we're hunting the last week of October. You want to cover a lot of ground and do a lot of glassing. If it was mid to late November when the rut is on, Bart and I'd be hunting this completely differently.
I can see 3 of them. They're all young, 1.5 olds.
I would rather shoot a doe for the freezer and just for the purpose of conservation than I would to shoot a 1.5-year-old or a 2.5-year-old buck. I want to see them get a little older, get a better age class, and I think most hunters are that way. You told me you weren't going to shoot anything unless he was gargantuan. I don't think those fit in the gargantuan size. Whether or not that's going to unfold that way in this hunt, I don't know. We've decided we were going to come out here, hunt some public land in national forest that maybe isn't the classic high mountain mule deer country. It's more of the breaks and ponderosa pine country.
I'm going to take off that raincoat. It's hardly even sprinkling now, and it's just, I'm sweating too bad. I've mule deer hunted just as long as I've elk hunted. It was something that, you know, my dad taught us to do.
Like my windshield protector for my mobile blogging device.
This country is a lot different from where I'm normally hunting. They're not like really big canyons, but then they'll go up and there'll be flat plateaus.
This terrain is just so easy to get around in on foot. A lot of places where you're going to hunt mule deer, Wyoming, Colorado, that is some tough, steep country. Around here, it's not anything near that bad.
Wow, this is cool up here. Pretty open.
Yeah, it's way more open than I thought it was. They could easily be tucked into this stuff.
Oh yeah, I'm sure when they come off those fields up there, probably just bed on these benches where they can see good. And one of the things that is, I'll almost use the term relaxing about a hunt like this, it's not a difficult hunt. Yeah, there's a lot of walking, but it's not a lot of up and down. Looks like a rub there, Bart.
Definitely a deer.
And if you get a deer down, it's not like breaking down an elk and trying to get him out of the woods. Wow. This is one of the bigger bodied elk I've ever shot. And he's laying on the ground and you got to figure out how I'm going to get him in small pieces and get him out of here on my back.
When we packed out Randy's elk, you know, that as a grunt, those are huge animals, especially the elk he got was just like a horse. It was huge. You know, this you don't have to quite think about so much where you are terrain-wise. You can get a mule deer out pretty easily.
They must come on this ridge stuff, just place to place, and when they find a good spot, they mark their turf. Good to know they're starting to do that anyhow. In this part of Montana, if you have a deer tag, the success rates are very high. And by very high, I mean over 50%. If you have a deer tag in Montana and you don't fill that tag, the odds are you just said, I didn't find the buck I was looking for.
It's a buck, it's nothing fantastic.
I mean, every morning there's just deer everywhere. Every little draw you go, there's more deer, more deer, more deer. But it's all little spikes, forkies, 3-point bucks. Well, Bart, what do you say we move on and get a closer look or find another group that has that unmistakable appearance of Big Hank?
I haven't killed any record book deer or anything, but it's, you know, it's always fun. It's a challenge trying to get one bigger than the last. And
we're gonna shoot a mature buck, and hopefully 4.5 and older. What we've seen so far hasn't met that criteria. I can see the one.
He's got his head right behind the tree. Coming up that ridge this morning, we kind of had our heads down. We were looking off to the right down into the canyon, and we jumped a buck. It was a smaller one, but you could just see half of his, you know, horns coming out the side of the tree. And
that doesn't look wide enough. Like that one was bumped.
I don't think it is either.
Bumped. It seemed like it went down, not across, didn't it? Let's see if we can sneak up and around and look back down in that draw.
I could tell it wasn't probably one that I would want to shoot at this time. You know, it was exciting. Heck, we were right there. Got into some action right off the bat.
The fun part of a mule deer hunt like this is how many animals you're going to see. You're always looking at game. You're always coming up with a strategy, plotting. It's not boring in the least.
I'm going to food.
You're going to food. Does that mean that you're hungry? It is nice being this close to camp though, where we're hunting. That way you can dart back and make a warm lunch and not
Wish
miss.
my wife was cooking, not you.
Many people would come here and they would hunt by themselves. But for camaraderie, for safety, for other reasons, Bart and I chose to do this hunt together. And I would say most often I hunt with somebody.
Well, this is all that stuff we hunted today.
Right.
And we know there were a ton of deer in there. We just didn't see any big bucks.
I think a good strategy for mule deer is to try to find, you know, feeding areas and hillsides where they'll go bed on like the north sides, and then they'll come out and feed.
It would just be very natural for them to use all those little draws to come down into this agriculture.
Right. Really try to find a vantage point so that you can glass a lot of country, and then you can find out where they're going and what they're doing. And
Ready?
Yep.
Let's go. You need to brace yourself if you come to this part of Montana and do a public land hunt. There's a lot of other hunters. Montanans love to hunt, just like they do in a lot of other states.
Check that out, Bart. Looks like some people are towing somebody in a game cart.
And so they're going to be out here on these public lands. But that's not the end of the world. We have so much public land in the West. You can find a spot that's kind of your little away from the crowd place.
That's cool.
must be handicapped. You can't. It is pretty cool. Hopefully they get something.
I hope so. We'll let them have that place down there. How's that? We'll go find another spot. We don't need to mess up a mobility impaired hunt.
So there are a lot of other people who come here and enjoy this on your own public land hunting in this part of Montana, and I'm glad they do. And there's more than enough animals to go around, and there's more than enough terrain for all of us to spread out and have a very enjoyable hunt.
You ready?
Oh, coffee.
Those of you who hunt the western states, and maybe even the eastern states, know that come late October and November, the weather can be anything. We went from snow to rain, to one day of sun, back to rain, now today's snow.
What's the plan, Bart May?
We're gonna go back out where we saw those bucks late last night and hope that they work their way back up from feeding. Randy and I split up last night right before dark. I noticed coyote howling. It seemed like it was spooking some deer, and I saw these deer come running out above, and one of them was a nice 4-point. Dang it.
Between sweating and rain, and now I see that nice skiff of snow this morning.
The weather changes so much. Clothing is a huge issue. Good clothing. Clothing that allows you to be active and then be warm when you aren't active.
Every night I come in, my stuff is soaked. Been hanging it up there to dry, but still in the morning you wake up, it feels like it's a little damp.
This morning we woke up, it's kind of a surprise, looked out the tent, there was a little blanket of snow on the ground, and we decided we were gonna come back to the same spot we saw the 3 bucks that came out last night. Because they could have fed, and then, you know, there's something else over there.
To me, this is the weather I love to deer hunt in. It makes it a little harder to glass, but the deer are up and they're moving. It's colder, the wind is blowing. They're gonna have to get up and feed earlier today. In my mind, this kind of weather puts the advantage more in the favor of Bart and I than it would be if it's bluebird and sunny. If they fed out here, and you said last night they went around that point, they probably fed that direction with the wind in their face. And if they're gonna come back up, they're probably coming up that next drainage this morning. So this morning, we head back in there, and they're not anywhere near where we'd seen them. So we keep going ridge after ridge after ridge. Well, the last little ridge is where we know it abuts up to the private property. And all of a sudden he taps me, he says,
Oh wait, Randy, there's 2 big bucks. 2 big ones.
one of them is a tank. He's the biggest buck I've ever seen in Montana while out deer hunting.
Bart, you know where the fence is?
Yeah, they're on the private, just barely on the private.
You see that fence runs up that hillside right there?
We crept out, we got on them without spooking them. Unfortunately, they were still on the private. They're walking into that brush. I don't have them in my sight, I can't see them. You can just see the one.
Man, is he big, Bart?
It's really big.
And then he just looks at us for the longest time, and he's 27, 28 inches wide. A doe leaves that buck brush and walks up around the corner of a little just ridge that we can't see behind.
They go up that hill, you think they'll jump the fence?
I think they got to be right on it if they didn't jump it already. This other buck's right here.
We'll stay here and keep an eye on that buck.
The plan is Bart's gonna circle around, and he's gonna come up that fence line, and he's gonna be able to shoot right down into that ridge. And I'm gonna stand there and wait.
Crap. Just jumped a bunch of does right towards the buck.
And all of a sudden, they come running right through that group. Bus goes down on the private instead of coming up on the public. Oh, man. That fence line right there is private. You can't shoot that buck on private, even though he's only 30 yards on the other side of the fence. Don't tell me that that's not a temptation to shoot that buck and know that you could drag that buck 30 yards.
But the wind is blowing like 50 times harder than right here. And there was does bedded on there's so many wrinkles.
But if you're a hunter, if you respect private property, you have to let that buck go. Let's go. You up for a hike?
Yeah, I'm just bummed.
What do? That's hunting. That's how it goes. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't.
It's cold, so I decided to build a fire. So I'm gonna be sitting here for a couple hours. I'm not gonna wait it. I'm not gonna sit here and freeze to death.
Well, Bart, I'm gonna make a big loop in this basin. I'm gonna leave my spotting scope with you. And my hope is if they come off these draws, I think if they cross this ridge, you'd be able to sneak and catch them as they're coming through a saddle somewhere.
So I'm gonna wait for someone to try to push deer or whatever, you know, I'm gonna hang out here and stay warm. I'm a little frustrated. It's been really fun to see a huge buck, and we've actually seen some really great bucks, but boy, they've just been putting a slip on us. Yeah, I'm frustrated, I'm bummed, I'm tired and wet.
You know, right now, the sand is draining out of the hourglass. I would say the odds of us getting a buck on this hunt are less than 10%.
Did you see anything?
I averaged about a deer a mile.
Really?
I saw 7 deer. Not a buck in the group. That's not the end of the world to me. It's been a ton of fun. Most days, I don't get my buck. About 4 hours left to pull out a miracle, Bart. If I got my buck every time I went out, would it be that much fun? I don't think so.
I still think it's gonna happen.
I'm glad to hear that. This afternoon, I think Bart is gonna take it easy on. I went on this huge hike thinking I was gonna bird dog and push something his way, and he could then move along these ridges to try and get a chance at one of them.
He was tired and down in the dumps because we didn't kick any deer out.
I haven't worked this hard in 3 days of deer hunting in most 3-week deer hunts.
We knew that there was a possibility that there was a couple decent bucks that crossed the valley in the morning in front of us and went up on this ridge that was actually on the forest. So the plan we made was that he was gonna swing around the head of the basin and kind of still hunt down through the timber. Good luck. I'll be watching.
All right.
I'm just gonna hang out up on this point.
This is the last day. Bart's going up where we saw that buck this morning.
So we split up and he went high and I went kind of low, and gosh, it wasn't more than 15 minutes and oh man, there they are. Crap, they're running. They're moving really quick through this timbered slope. I knew I had to kind of run down around. There was a little rock knob that I could get a pretty decent rest on, I figured, you know, or a flat place. So I ran down there, threw up the scope, and I'm watching them go through the trees, and there's 2 bucks for sure that I can see. There's 2 of them. I think the first one's the biggest one. Sure enough, he comes right out onto this opening and he decides to stop, and I just settled in the crosshairs. Right there. He buckled, you know, he hunched up and headed over the hill, and he was out of sight. Randy, I hear one right down here. I shot him right on the ridge below you.
I see the white rump of a deer right down here.
Woo! I can't believe I hit him.
Last day May. We all hunt with certain people for certain reasons. And I live far away from my family, so I don't get to hunt with them much more. But I've got a core group of friends, and Bart May is right at the top of that group of friends of great guys, fun to hunt with, and a great hunter.
Man, look at the body on that guy. For
He
younger deer.
I like to hunt on my own on public land because it's a challenge, you know. You're dealing with all the different elements that are out there.
Woo, public land,
yeah.
mule deer. The hardest 4 or 5 days of deer hunting I've done in a long time.
Yeah.
It's something. We've had snow, we've had rain, we've had wind, we've had little bucks, big bucks, and those in between. And I know Bart was thinking about that really big buck we saw 2 days in a row on this private land, just right off the public boundary. I mean, last day, your thoughts are like, oh, what am I doing? What am I thinking here?
Everything was looking big and moving fast.
Here we are, the last hour, the last day. When the buck comes by, you say, this is kind of my last chance. And Bart did that, and he shot a really good buck.
That sun's dropping, and we got a long ways to go around this hill.
Cool.
Good job, hey, thanks a lot. Thanks.
This is another one of the on your own adventures, the type of adventure that we do, that I think all of you do. It's on public land, and yeah, the bucks aren't Boone and Crockett bucks, but you know what? It is so much fun, and I know that's why you hunt, and that's why we hunt.
Just like fishermen have their stories of the big one that got away, that big monster buck, just out of reach on private land, will be forever embedded in the memories of Randy and Bart. Excitement comes from the split-second decisions required in hunting, the memories of which become the embers that keep the hunting fires burning year-round. Quality time in the field, hunting hard, and the spirit of adventure. Those are the things that make hunting on your own the memorable and fulfilling experience that it is. And the very best part of any on-your-own adventure is that it's completely accessible and completely achievable by you, the real American hunter.